Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Dartmouth School Committee to order for Monday, November 9th, 2020. And as a reminder, I guess I'm getting a little tired of reading this, but I think it's important that we do just let the public, the viewing public, know that per Governor Baker's order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, the public will not be allowed to physically access this school committee meeting. Members of the public can access the meeting via live stream at youtube.com/DHSTV Media. In addition, the event will be rebroadcast on DCTV channels 9 and 18 on the following days: Wednesday and Thursday at 5 p.m., Friday at 6 a.m., Saturday at 8 a.m., and Sunday at 2 p.m. The school committee reserves the right to implement additional remote participation procedures and will notify the public of these procedures as soon as practicable. That being said, could I have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Genthner?
Chris Oliver.
Here.
Shannon Jenkins. Kathleen Amaral.
Here.
John Nunes.
Yep.
Mary Waite. Here.
Thank you very much, and I know we don't have a viewing audience here, but just a reminder to my fellow colleagues to silence your cell phones, and I'll do that right now. Perfect. At this time, we typically allow an opportunity.
Chairman, would you do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you. It's been so long. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can always count on Mr. Nunes to
Keep you in line.
yeah, exactly, to keep us in line. He is always there for us. Typically, at this time, we allow public comment for anyone wishing to comment on any of tonight's agenda items. For those of you who may have viewed our agenda that's posted on the town clerk's website, you can see that you have an opportunity to comment on any of tonight's agenda items by emailing our recording secretary, Kathleen Genthner, at dartmouthschools.org. And also, throughout this evening tonight, we will revisit this before we close and go into executive session. So if you have any comments that you'd wish to share this evening, you can do so by emailing Kathleen Genthner once again, and we'll revisit this. At this time, Ms. Genthner, do we have any public comments relating to tonight's agenda?
I have not received any comments.
Great. Thank you very much. This time, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the regular session minutes of October 19th, 2020.
A second.
I have a motion by Mr. Nunes, a second by Mrs. Waite. On the motion, any further discussion? Chair hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the executive session minutes of October 19th, 2020.
So moved, Mr. Chair, with the stipulation that they be held until the matter for which they're intended is completed.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Nunes, a second by Mrs. Waite, to approve the executive session minutes of October 19th. Any further discussion? Chair hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Gifford. We have a presentation this evening, our school improvement plan for Dartmouth Middle School. Dr. Gifford.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So tonight we have the middle school, as you said, presenting their school improvement plan, and I believe the entire administrative team, Ms. Deakus, Mr. Doan, Mr. Rossi, and Mr. Hayes will be here to discuss some of the things that the middle school we'll be thinking about as the year progresses, as well as to provide a little bit of an update on how things have been going at the middle school since we've started school.
Excellent.
He was there a little while ago.
No problem. And I know that with Mr. Parati and Mr. Galashaw here, we're continuing to get more technologically advanced with our school committee meetings. So I have no doubt that,
If I may, it's, the voice is kind of unclear, so it's
There we
very
go.
difficult to pick up the audio.
All right.
can you hear us now, Mr. Doan? We can see Mr. Rossi, and we can hear you, Mr. Doan.
Pete's like, nope, can't hear.
Are you muted or unmuted?
Oh, I need to unmute, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's just tricky.
Hey,
Good. I can hear you. Great
Okay.
deal of echo, Mr.
There we go.
Galashaw, right now on your end. I don't know how I'm coming across.
you're coming.
See, I think it's with that.
I think it, yeah. Okay, so we don't touch the mute then.
You don't
Okay,
want us.
that's-
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, may we, Mr. Galashaw, is it okay to begin our presentation at this time? Yeah, we
Yeah.
can't. Okay, the audio was unclear at the beginning. Thank you. All right, thumbs up. Thank you, Chairman Oliver. I appreciate it. This evening, Mr. Rossi, our assistant principal, Mr. Hayes, our assistant principal, and Mrs. Deacus, our associate principal. Again, just going to share with you our school improvement plan. Mr. Rossi, at first, will also, we know the school committee would like to hear as to how our hybrid model is going thus far. And Mr. Robidoux, who retired last year, his last words to me when he walked out the door was delegate. So this evening, we'll have Mr. Rossi share about our hybrid plan. Mrs. Deacus will discuss teaching and learning, as well as access and equity, and how that ties into our school improvement plan. And Mr. Hayes will follow up with the community engagement. So with all that being said, we thank you for providing us with the opportunity to present this evening, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Rossi.
Thank you, Mr. Doan, and good evening. I just kind of wanted to walk you through what our hybrid looks like at the middle school. First and foremost, I can't say enough about staff, students, parents, how they've stepped up to meet this challenge. Presently, right now, our doors open at 7:30 as opposed to 7:10. And what we do is as students enter our building, and we've added entry points. We used to have one, now we have three. They report right to their homeroom. And once in their homeroom, that's kind of their pod, and that can be anywhere from 8 to 12 students. And within that pod, within their homeroom, that's where they're receiving their 4 academics and their lunch. Our cafeterias actually right now are pretty large teaching spaces, and we deliver the lunch to them. One of the real challenges, and teachers have been great, is they actually teach in 4 different spaces. So the kids are staying in one location and the teachers are moving. Our students are moving when they go to their specials, and when we are moving students, we stagger that by grade level. So we only have 1 grade level moving at a time, and our bells have kind of become obsolete, and we just kind of come over the intercom and tell kids when it's safe to move. I know some of you have had an opportunity to visit our building, but we've got traffic patterns. Our stairwells are one-ways, hallways that are only 6 feet are one-ways. And then in the rest of the building, we're able to go 2-way, but it almost kind of resembles a bike path, if you will, where kids kind of stay within their lane. Kids are not assigned lockers this year, or they're not changing for gym. We've kind of taken it upon ourselves. Mr. Doan had a great idea to kind of give kids their own bathroom pass that they have on them. And we kind of have hooks outside of the bathroom, and we only allow 2 kids in at a time. And I have to say that the compliance with the kids with their masks and the rules that we've put in place, they've been outstanding. As far as what we've done with our custodians, we've kind of switched their schedules around a little bit, and we have 2 on during the day, and they're consistently cleaning high surface areas. At the end of the day, Mr. Kiley was able to purchase that backpack to disinfect classrooms at a pretty fast pace. That's kind of what our day looks like. As I said, kids have been great, just outstanding. I don't know if you have any specific questions you'd like to ask, maybe to get in a little more detail. I'd be happy to do that.
Any of my fellow committee members? Mr. Nunes?
not really,
Jonathan?
would you like to save the question?
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Rossi.
Rossi. I do have my fellow committee member, Mr. Nunes here that has a question for you.
Sure, great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rossi or anyone, Mr. Doan, Ms. Deacon, Mr. Hayes, with regards to, oh.
Okay, I thought,
We'll
we'll get this right yet.
Oh, I've got you pretty clearly right now, Mr. Nunes.
Okay.
Mr.
This is anyone on the administration at the middle school.
Naturally, unfortunately, because of everyone, the concern with, students being sick, whether it's, head colds or, potentially exposed to COVID and having to quarantine, how are we handling, the education for these students when they're out of school for 14 days, which would, could be, 10 to 12, school days? Even, with the 2 on, the 3 in, 2 out, vice versa. How are those students, being educated?
You may answer.
Well, Mr. Nunes, currently what we have in place is teachers, and over the past few years have become well-versed with a variety of technology platforms, and Mr. Hayes later in this presentation will kind of share further. But our guidance staff, we identify who those students have. We create kind of a Google form, so we keep that updated. It's, I won't lie to you, it's a bit of a challenge because we not only identify when the students are out, but also we have to identify when that return date is. So guidance staff gets that information. They connect with those students on a daily basis. We advise our teachers, our teams, of those students that will be out. They connect with those students via academic support, common planning time, etc. And also we've utilized our math coach as well as our ELA coach. So they're provided those students' names as well. So they periodically reach out with those students. So there is that connectiveness through the course of their time being out. And also with that, each day we're kind of reflecting on our current practices and trying to identify and develop ways in which we can kind of further not only connect with those students, but also connect with our students that may not physically be in the school at that time. So number one, our goal is to make sure that we manage and identify and have a clear understanding of those students that are out, and also make sure that we're connecting and advising our teachers and guidance staff as well as to when those students will be returning and what supports we can place for them while they are out. Hopefully that answered your question, Mr. Nunes.
Yes, it did. Thank you, sir.
Any of my other fellow colleagues have questions for Mr. Doan or any of his team?
I have a quick question.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Waite.
Okay, just unmute.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Hi. One quick question I have is, when it comes to content, do the teachers feel that, I know they lost a few weeks and then we're on this schedule, do they feel like they're kind of staying on track? I know that, there's been some moving around and kind of reprioritizing certain standards. I'm just kind of curious what the feedback is on content coverage with teachers and students. Thank you.
Also a point person for curriculum. Sarah.
Yeah, and I'll be kind of touching on that when I get into the presentation, but they're actually pleasantly surprised. They were able to get a lot done. They are very appreciative of the 10 days that we had at the beginning of the year to make sure that we had good, solid remote lessons. And they're actually, as you said, we're kind of refocusing a little bit on the power standards and so forth, but we're within less than a week off where we would normally be. So we're doing okay.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you.
And I will, I'm not sure if I'm, looks like I'm unmuted right now, so I do have one last question before we move on in regards to community engagement, and I'm not sure which one of the admin wants to take it there, but, and this is more general, I think, than just specifically to the middle school. I think, I love your last bullet here, Mr. Rossi, where you say, continue to seek ways to proactively communicate and define appropriate communication. I think it's so important that we continue to educate our community and our students at how important it is to practice good social distancing and good social practices when we're not in school. Because I'm saying this now, and you're going to hear me say it again later on tonight, in which if we can do as much as we can within the boundaries and within the walls of our school buildings in for the Dartmouth Public Schools. However, if students go home and they decide, or their families decide, to make poor decisions and have large social gatherings, that's not only going to jeopardize themselves, but that's going to jeopardize the entire student body in whatever school we're going back to, you know, whether it's the Dartmouth Middle School, the Dartmouth High School, or any of the elementary schools. So I think it's imperative that we continue, not only as a school district at the central office level, but also at the building level, that we continue to do our best to really educate. And you know, and I want to believe that we've educated people as much as we can, but I think it's so important that we continue to reiterate that in order to keep schools open, and Commissioner Riley and Governor Baker did make that clear earlier this week, and that's a whole other topic, but in order to keep schools open, we're going to need to keep students safe, not only in school, but they got to be making safe, appropriate decisions outside. And I think the most that we can do as a school system is just continue to remind families and remind students to practice, you know, just have good practices. So I just want to make sure that we're continuing to communicate proactively and effectively with our school community at Dartmouth Middle School, as well as across the district.
You can comment on that.
Well, follow up on that, Mr. Oliver. I mean, I do believe, I know that at the district level, even on the town level, I think, and school committee as well, I think all parties have been very proactive in just conveying that message. I know it's been kind of bi-weekly that I submit a message from the principal, kind of an informative letter. Initially, early in the school year, we sent a very letter that consisted of a variety of areas in which we wanted to keep parents informed, and specifically the kind of the safety in the building and steps that we had taken to kind of support students in this pandemic. So whether in and outside of school, you know, we continue to convey that message. And I have to say, I only speak on behalf of the middle school, but you know, I found parents overall have been very, very supportive in the steps that we've taken to keep children safe. They've been very patient. As Mr. Rossi alluded to, and I know this doesn't take care of things outside of school as well, but parents have reached out. Mr. Rossi and I kind of become the point person with our nurses. And so we've had parents reach out. We've reached out to them as well, just communicating, keep the lines of communication open to assist them, to address any questions that they may have in regards to the steps we've taken, and even concerns they may have outside of school. We've kind of directed them to the appropriate people. So again, just striving to keep those lines of communication open. I think that's been beneficial. And as I previously just stated, you know, the parents as a whole have been, you know, very supportive in the steps that we have taken. And, you know, we greatly appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Doan. That's all we have here. Whenever you're ready to move on.
Mr. Rossi alluded to it well, but just to let you know, I mean, our students remain in their academic classes, and our teachers move. So, when it comes to the technology and supports for and pertains to curriculum, et cetera. I know Mrs. Deacus has worked awful hard in helping teachers kind of facilitate the process. And it's been, I think, not so much a challenge, but having teachers move from room to room and being in an area that maybe they're not particularly familiar with. So Mrs. Deacus, with her support, they've all worked extremely hard to kind of create a learning environment that supports them and it helps enable them to kind of enrich their instructional delivery. So with that being said, we'll turn this over to Mrs. Deacus.
Thank you, Mr. Doan. I did put up a slide for you. Just those are kind of the key points we're going to pull from the SIP. I believe you all have an updated copy of this year's plan, which was a little more challenging than usual given the circumstances. But we did try to really look at what we can do. So just to give you an idea, trying to support the district's initiative of, relating to the coherence and effectiveness of the curriculum, we really need to continue to monitor and update our scope and sequence in all areas. We use it, we have the scope and sequence up every single time we meet in our curriculum planning time as a guide. And as I had mentioned earlier, at this point, we're pretty much on target. We know where we're going to be, at Thanksgiving. We know where we're going to be at Christmas. And we're pretty confident that we'll be able to hit all of the standards by the end of the school year. We have to review it on a regular basis. We add hyperlinks to it. We make sure they're in alignment with the DESE. We share information on a regular basis. The sixth grades completely adopted the new geography standards, and the eighth grade are right at the end last spring, or actually last early winter. They went through some PD for the new civics projects that DESE is requiring, and they're ready to go this year. We'll be completing that in the spring. At our most recent after-school curriculum meeting, we made a lot of different updates to the scope and sequences with really a primary focus on the power standards. We did make some adjustments. For example, in the eighth grade, they had developed some real strong units in plate tectonics that were primarily remote units because we were working at it in the spring. So we flipped that to the beginning of the year. We also decided that we really want to have an interdisciplinary approach to some of the units this year. So, for example, in sixth grade, when we get to the unit on Africa in social studies, and they'll be working on the geography, the ELA classes will simultaneously be reading The Long Walk to Water that looks at it from another lens. And we've moved that to earlier in the year, that's usually kind of the end of the year project. This year it'll be in January. We're feeling that we have a pretty strong foundation of technology that's really helped us. Every single day we're looking at virtual platforms, what we can use to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all the kids. Mr. Hayes will be addressing that in more detail in a little bit. Another area I wanted to touch on is how we use data to ensure that the students' academic and social emotional needs are met, and with targeted interventions and enrichments. This is supporting the district initiative of using student growth data and assessments to make sure we're providing those interventions. This was very, very challenging last spring, particularly when it came to the social emotional needs. As you can imagine, there was a lot of anxiety out there, increase in depression and so forth. We had used our guidance counselors, special ed teachers, support staff. We're all doing a lot of regular check-ins, lunch bunches, one-to-one meetings, social groups to really make sure that we kept those connections as much as possible. Prior to the closing, we had some PD on the use of technology, which is ironic, but the use of technology and its connection to depression, anxiety, and addiction. We had also done some through DESE on the LGBTQ community and ways that we could promote a safe and supportive culture. We have a data RTI team that meets on a regular basis to review student progress. We try to look at as many data points as possible. Up until this year, we used MCAS, STAR, grades, nurses, referrals, kids going to, how many times they were going to the guidance office, attendance, behavioral Swiss data, and so forth. Excuse me. And we would meet as a team and kind of look at what type of programs or interventions a kid may need. It may be intervention plans with specific strategies. It may need targeted math or reading specialists, possibly the after-school small tutorial program we had up until the spring, or our in-school student support center, check-in, check-out, mental health referrals, etc. We already have had meetings this year. We have another one again this week, and we continue to use that data to look at the kids and what they might need. One of the benefits we discovered with the hybrid was we're actually able to increase the number of kids that can get services through the reading specialists. They're successful because they're small groups. We try not to have more than 5 or 6 kids in those classes, and where half the kids aren't here. We were actually able to increase that, and we were able to provide that to a much higher number of kids. So it was a little silver lining there. We've also changed the way that we're doing the check-in, check-out mentoring program this year. Historically, its primary focus is to look at kids that may need support. They're having a number of discipline referrals and so forth. But our PBIS team felt strongly that we really wanted to make sure those kids at home that might be struggling a little bit, really, we wanted to keep that connection with school and really keeping a close eye on them. We've already have, I think, 4 or 5 kids that we've connected with mentors. They check in with them when they're in school, but they also do a Google Meet with them when they're at home and just check in on them. This is an adult in our building that is not necessarily a direct academic teacher for that kid. It's just to help make a connection of an adult that cares about them and wants to make sure they're doing well, both in school and out of school. The response from the parents of the kids that we have connected has been very positive as well, and very appreciative. One actually said, I think that's the thing that's helping them the most right now is just keeping that positive connection with school. Moving on to access and equity. One of the things that has been something I'm actually really proud of is the partial inclusion classes that we kicked off last year in both ELA and math. It took a lot of work, a lot of collaboration with the special ed department and within our building to make it work. We didn't hire any new staff, but we had people that really saw a need, and we worked to make sure that it happened. Before it kicked off, we did provide, with the help from the special ed director, professional development. We had 3 different teachers at one at each level that was teaching the class, and we provided training in programs such as Cloud 9, Sunday, and the LLI reading levels. We used our data team and special ed staff to identify kids using multiple data points over at least 2 years worth of school. And we tried to keep the classes small, between 5 and 8. The progress that we saw in the short amount of time that we had, again, with the closing, was pretty significant. We saw kids increasing 1 to 2 grade levels. So we were really proud of how well that worked. We were able to create a master schedule so that those teachers also continued to teach full inclusion. So that as the kids are improving, they can go back into an inclusion class, and we can keep with our goal that we have the least restrictive environment. This year, we actually only needed ELA in 7th grade. We found we had enough growth that we didn't need that partial inclusion class in 7th. Our 8th grade, we still have 1 partial inclusion for math and ELA. And 6th, we actually didn't need it in either. We just have our programs with a PASS and PAL program. So so far, we're really on target and we're really pleased with how well that's been going. We have been working on this for a number of years, and it's a good thing that we had. Providing more technology to increase the learning for blended learning and now remote learning. The previous training and the work that our teachers had done with Highlander really allowed for a smooth transition to remote learning with the Google Classrooms. We had the live and pre-recorded lessons last spring and again at the beginning of this year and now in the remote days. The GoGuardian and the Google Classrooms have really been essential parts of our teaching and maintaining contact with the students. Our 8th graders are now in their 3rd year with the one-to-one technology. And because of this, it has allowed us the capacity to provide students in need of Chromebooks for remote learning at all grade levels this past spring. Through the coordinated effort of both the district and the school administrators, multiple days were set up for parents to come and pick up Chromebooks. I think pretty much every day, Mr. Rossi was out there handing out Chromebooks to kids right up until June. Some of the things that we were doing and are continuing to do with the technology are some of the literary analysis discussions. The kids will create online blogs and they talk to each other about books, and it's across the whole grade level. They're not like limited to their classrooms. They're interacting with kids, and it's really given kids that maybe don't necessarily want to speak all the time a real strong voice and opinion when they're talking about their books, and it's been very impressive. We also had projects including like podcasting, green screen video projects, Genius Hour. Kids are creating websites, short movies, Maker's Mark, all kinds of things. So we were blessed to have started this, and it really helped us out a lot. This year, Jonathan was great. We were able to get one-to-one for our 7th grade as well. So now the carts were given to the 6th grade student homeroom, so each of those kids have them as well. So it's really been a tremendous help keeping up with the curriculum and giving the kids the technology they need to make all of the remote learning and the hybrid days working. Our message this year has been to be fluid and be flexible. Things are changing on a daily basis. This afternoon, our teachers were working in groups on sharing all the different creative ways they are reaching the kids at home and how they're going to continue to add to that in the future days. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hayes.
Are there any questions, though, for Mrs. Deaconess before Mr. Hayes speaks?
First of all, thank you, Mrs.
for that presentation. Any of my colleagues have any questions specific to Mrs. Deaconess?
I can wait till the end.
You're going to wait till the end? Yeah, we'll wait till the end, Mr. Doan. Thank you.
Big thank you to Mrs. Deaconess, too. I know she's a little nervous filling Mr. Robidoux's shoes, but she's done a great job, and I know Mr. Robidoux is very proud, so we're happy to have her on board in that role. Mr. Hayes?
All right. So as we adjusted to this in real time and making connections to our students and families outside of school last spring, teachers really began to and got comfortable with and continue to use Google Meet as well as other virtual meeting platforms to connect with students and their families. Teachers are also using communication platforms, including email, Google Classroom, which Mrs. Deaconess mentioned, GoGuardian, Dojo, Remind, and other apps and technology resources in order to keep the lines of communication open with students and their families. Administratively, we've consistently communicated with families using email and using the robocall system that we have in place to reach everyone, our Dartmouth Public School app as well. In order to reach out to students, in particular our incoming students this year, staff were able to create a virtual open house presentation which highlighted our academic expectations, our standard-based grading system, and use of social media, along with personalized videos for the incoming fifth graders who hadn't had a chance to come into our building as we missed our normal fifth grade step-up day at the end of last year. And we were also able to hold a virtual graduation ceremony with personalized messages from teachers for our eighth grade students, along with a designated day for the eighth grade students to come to school to pick up their belongings, to say a final goodbye to the DMS teachers and staff, as well as to receive the awards that they earned throughout their time at the middle school, really celebrating all the successes that they had, as well as holding similar days to that for the sixth and seventh grade students to come and pick up their belongings. In working through connections with the community, our students have been involved in a number of community service activities. We've established connections with our National Junior Honor Society, to the Council on Aging, Gifts to Give, the Dartmouth Natural Resources Trust. They've been involved in beach cleanups, our Green Up Day, and a number of other school activities that go to benefit the community, sock drives and glove drives, and things of that nature, doing Thanksgiving baskets, so on and so forth. And academically as well, you know, connecting to the community and even to a larger base, our students have been able to connect on a national level through participation in the National Scholastic Math Challenge last year, and that continues to go on this year, as well as National Sundog Math Challenges. And our students, we were able to get 78 student authors published in the Mission Contamination by the YoungWritersUSA.org, and have students participate in things and receive feedback from outside of our school community on a really large scale. And we're really proud of all of the things that we've been able to do in those regards and all the things that our students have been able to accomplish in those regards.
I'd like to, I'll just wrap up a little bit, but I want to convey my appreciation to Mr. Hayes, as I'm sure the school committee members are well aware. He was a math teacher for a number of years, an outstanding teacher, and he was selected to be one of our assistant principals, and he's done a great job stepping in specifically with this pandemic, and so I definitely appreciate his work ethic, dedication as well. The challenge that we've had at the middle school, and I think we've always strived, as Mrs. Deacus alluded to, is to meet the social and emotional needs of all of our students, but as well as the academic piece. And I won't, to be very honest with you, it's been a bit of a challenge, a lot of moving parts. But with all that being said, I've been very pleased with staff and the collaboration, et cetera. One of the things that we're currently working on is implementing kind of a homework support platform, where we have teachers, you know, in particular subject areas. And we're looking at December 1st through the 18th, 2 days a week, in which students can access from 2:30 to 4. So via the Google Meet, they can reach out to a teacher or support staff. If they're in sixth grade, we'll have we will have sixth grade teachers, seventh and eighth as well. So hopefully that will be received well by the community and parents, to know that we have some additional support for them that they can access. And again, our goal is to start that off in December, and then something will continue January through the remainder of the year. But again, students will have an opportunity, if they have questions, they need some particular support and direction, you know, they can reach out via the homework support platform. As Mr. Hayes alluded to, you know, staff over the years and with the National Junior Honor Society and guidance have worked hard to support needy families within our community. Last year, there were approximately 40-some families in Thanksgiving, as well as the holiday season. We had a Winter Wonderland project. So we'll have to adjust that a little bit this year. But again, our plan is to continue to support those families. Also, as Mrs. Deacus had alluded to earlier, we had a great opportunity today where staff was able to get at breakout sessions, were able to get together with their colleagues and really begin to share specific things that they've been doing to further connect with students outside of school. So we're going to gather that information. They're going to submit that. And then once we've gathered all that intel, then we'll share it out to staff. So there'll be specific ideas and ways in which they've been able to connect, and a nice way to share that with staff and to further build upon what we're currently doing. And with that being said, just striving to just kind of maintain our partnerships. And we've done so. I know our tech teachers have developed and partnered with naval underseas kind of STEM projects. So we were currently been awarded a wide range of materials and equipment, from 3D printers to Lego Spike robotics, makerspace, etc. So even in the midst of these difficult financial times, these are some materials that are coming our way. So we're very excited about that, and I do appreciate the efforts our tech education teachers have done, not only maintaining that partnership, but further developing their programs. Lastly, on my note, I just want to, again, I want to convey my appreciation for the support of the district and school committee and the community at large during these difficult times. Our students, who really have kind of rose to the occasion, as Mr. Rossi alluded to. Our staff, who really has had to adapt, and they've done so, working very collaboratively together and cooperatively, which is extremely important. Guidance staff, which is working tirelessly to connect with kids, to make sure that their social emotional needs are being supported, especially those kids that are not with us on their off days. And I just want to also convey my appreciation to my administrative team. They really went above and beyond, Mr. Rossi, in regards to the physical plant. And, he's we've become, he's delivering lunches with the rest of the administrative team. He's become well-versed in that, but just meaning the overall day-to-day functions. And Mr. Hayes and Mrs. Dekas just supporting staff with technology and effort. So it's been an extremely team effort. So I just want to convey my appreciation to all those parties. So that concludes our presentation. And again, we're open to any questions or feedback that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Doan, Mrs. Dekas, Mr. Rossi, Mr. Hayes. First of all, just congratulations and welcome, Mr. Hayes, to the administration side of teaching. I believe it was my oldest daughter that had the opportunity to have you as a math teacher. So I think you're a great addition to the administration over at Dartmouth Middle School. That being said, I do have several questions. If you don't mind, if the committee doesn't mind, I'll start off first this round, and then I'll turn it over to you. A couple of things. What are the teachers finding at Dartmouth Middle School, Mr. Doan, or for any of your other colleagues that are also on the call? My personal opinion is that students are thrilled. They're happy to be in school. They want to be there, and they're really trying to do their best. At least that's what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing in my own district. Really trying to follow the rules and really be cognizant of their actions in school. So are you seeing the same thing with the cohorts that are at Dartmouth Middle School, that the students are being extremely respectful and really they're there and they're really engaged? That's kind of what I'm hearing. Is that the case?
I would agree. I'll take this one if you guys don't mind. I would agree with you for the most part. I think the behavior has been great and the respect, and I don't think we've had any issues with compliance with masks. One thing that is in some ways a little sad is how quiet the building is. You almost want a little more noise. It's like the masks sometimes mute kids, and that is a little frustrating. I did an observation this afternoon, and I was so happy to see a student was actually presenting to the class, and it was good to see the kids are starting to feel a little more comfortable. But the first few weeks, given that they hadn't been in school for a while, and the masks, they're very, very quiet, and I never thought I'd say this, but I'd like to hear a little more. Usually sixth grade is very loud, and like to see a little bit of that spunk come back.
No, that's a fair assessment, Mrs. Dekas. And I hope that, I'm not sure, I don't have any students anymore at Dartmouth Middle School, but I do hope that any opportunities that the students get, that we're able to at least provide them some kind of outdoor social distancing and be able to get outside, and especially while it's nice out, enjoy some fresh air. So just some of the other things I just want to touch base on. I'm thrilled because I know that last week or the week before there was some notifications, and there were some publications that went out that the high school was looking to start and is starting the synchronous learning, I believe today, at the high school, and then some, on social media, because of course a lot of times instead of reaching out directly to the source, whether it's the school departments or the central office, people tend to sometimes take to social media. I know that was some of the questions that was brought up, that, well, is this going to be filtered down to the middle school and to the elementary level? This is just my point of view. I haven't really heard from many of my colleagues, or from really hadn't had entertained a conversation with central office, but I think the fact that just like we did with the voting to start the year remotely, and I'm only speaking for myself here, but I think just how we started the year remotely, and it was a slow roll. I think this is a really important first step at the high school. I think we need to take it one day at a time, and I'm thrilled to hear that the Dartmouth Middle School is working on on some type of a virtual homework club. I think that's at least a step in the right direction for those learners that may be struggling, or maybe just having a little bit of a hard time at home and being able to log in remotely through Google Meet. So I'm really happy to hear that we're pushing that way. And let's face it, no matter what we do, I know on school committee, as well as administration, as well as I'm sure the administration at Dartmouth Middle School, is that we're not going to make everyone happy. I can assure the citizens of Dartmouth, and for those of you watching at home, that I have no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind that everyone sitting at this table around us, as well as remotely at Dartmouth Middle School and across the district, the other administrators, and especially our teaching staff, we are going above and beyond. We are doing the best we can to support our Dartmouth students, and I wouldn't want it any other way. That being said, I do have one last question before I turn it over to my colleagues. Is that Dartmouth Middle School is the only school in the district that opted to use TECA for our remote learning platform. I know the high school is using Edgenuity, and our elementary school has our virtual in-house virtual learning, remote learning program. The TECA program, as we all know, I've been highly involved with it in my other position. Unfortunately, the district has gotten a lot of flack from TECA, and I'm happy to hear, I think it was at one of our last school committee meetings, how the Dartmouth Middle School Guidance Department and some of the other staff are reaching out to our TECA students. So can you just provide us with an update, Mr. Doan, or if you want to turn it over to one of your other administrators there, as to how you think TECA is going for our remote learners at Dartmouth Middle School? And come January, I know originally we spoke about come January, the second semester, would we look, and are we continuing to look at the possible giving parents the option to return to hybrid learning in the Dartmouth Middle School?
Yes, you can. Sarah's done a nice job. She's kind of worked collaboratively with guidance and been that point person. So yes, go ahead, Mrs.
So I think we can all agree it was a rough start for sure. I think some of it was it was late. We were late out of the gate, and parents were hopeful that it was going to, the kids were going to sit down in front of a computer and have a full day of school, and it wasn't what they envisioned. But once we got into it for a couple of weeks, things have settled down, and things are going well. Parents are overall, I mean, is it 100%? No, but certainly it's improved significantly. Parents overall are happy with the content and the rigor of what is being taught. Again, the communication at first wasn't great, but we soon, once we discovered that they have online tutoring all day long, they do have some live lessons. It has much improved. We've had 504 meetings, we've had IEP meetings, and TECA has been very involved and supportive of that process. So those are some pluses. We've also made some enhancements, I'll call them. As you said, you had mentioned the guidance counselors reach out to those kids on a regular basis, so we maintain that contact with us. And we are working with TECA, our special ed teacher. We have a special ed teacher and a TA, teaching assistant, that work with all of the IEP kids. They do Google Meets with them. We look at the assessments that TECA and where they are with their curriculum. And we look and we provide some additional support and provide some assessments so that we can do our own grading and modifications. That's one of the tricky things, is we can't go in and modify their assessments, but we can provide some of our own for our assessments and keep in line, again, keep that connection with Dartmouth. We've had a fairly fluid process. We kind of recognize these are Dartmouth kids, whether they're in TECA now or, and they, we had, I think, a couple kids, one at Potter and one with us, that returned, I want to say today. So we've had kids join late. We've had kids come back already. We've had kids that have changed their mind. So it's been a little more fluid than we anticipated, but that's fine. I think the bottom line is there are kids, so whatever works for them. I think we'll probably see some come back in January, and we may have some stay. But overall, nothing's perfect, but it certainly has come a very long way since the beginning of the year.
Mr. Gallish? Thank you, Mrs. Dekas. Just a couple more quick questions in regards to TECA. I agree with you. I've heard the spectrum of parents. I've heard some parents say that the curriculum for those students that can handle it is extremely rigorous, especially if they're self-starters and they're comfortable on their own. And I've also heard the opposite, in which that they're being, it's very difficult, it's very challenging, in addition to, and let's make no mistake about it, and I can't speak for you, Mrs. Dekas, or for anyone at Dartmouth Middle School, but I can say that, at least from my point of view, is that I think not so much Dartmouth was out of the gate late. I think it was TECA that was out of the gate late. I honestly think that, when parents made the decision, and this is across the state from what I'm hearing, when parents made the decision to go to TECA, I think there was this, what's the word I'm looking for? Actuality in their minds that their students were going to be sitting in front of a teacher for most of the day, listening to live lessons. In reality, they're listening to 30-minute live lessons per course subject each week. 2 of those, and 1 of those are recorded. So, I think that Dartmouth Middle School is doing a tremendous job keeping up with these our TECA students, because let's face it, they are still our students. We're responsible for them, and I'm actually really thrilled. And to your point, as far as following up on IEPs and 504s, although those are our teachers, there are Dartmouth Public Schools teachers that are following up with TECA to make sure that TECA is taking care and not letting our students that are on IEPs and 504s slip through the cracks. Is that correct, or is that on TECA's side?
So, for example, if we have an IEP meeting, they have their staff there as well as our staff. So it's like a meeting like this with staff from both places. But we've taken it a step further because we're not utilizing their part of their program that has, direct special ed teachers. So our special ed staff is modifying assessments, and we'll use our assessments for final grading that mirror what they're doing, but we'll use our own assessments for grading and so forth. Does that make sense?
Waiting for Mr. Galashaw to lower the volume here. Can the same be said for 504s for any of our students? I don't know if we have any in tech around 504s, but can the same be said for those students that they're receiving the accommodations and support needed?
Actually went to one of those meetings, didn't you?
Yes, and a very similar platform to what you described before, our staff, the tech staff, and then we continue to provide supports for any of our students who need additional support.
So, Mr. Oliver, we've utilized our coaches as well to help support some further, provide some additional support.
I'm sorry, Mr. Doan, we missed that.
We took a good look at what we have internally. So, for example, our coaches, specific special education teachers, et cetera, we've, in meeting with those parents who may have 504s, IP, provide some additional support within as well.
Can I talk? I'm sorry, Mr. Doan. We're doing our best over here, but we did miss that last 30 seconds that you just spoke.
I just wanted to point out that while we are having those meetings, we do have supports in place, and I think we've reached out to those TECA parents. And again, if they've felt their child has been struggling, whether it's via our academic coaches or additional special education teachers within the buildings, we do have specific layers or tiers in which we're able to provide that additional support.
And just one last thing, I am thank you, kudos to all four of you that I'm seeing up here on the screen. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the effort and your willingness to put into this. I know that listening to what you're telling me, Dartmouth Middle School is going above and beyond to support our TECA students. The district will remain nameless, but I can share with you of a K-12 district in this area that is doing none of this, not supporting some of my niece and nephew, and it's very disappointing, and I'm thrilled to hear that we're going above and beyond to support Dartmouth students. So we're very lucky to have you as administrators at Dartmouth Middle School, and I want to thank you all for your presentation. I'll turn it over to my colleagues at this time. And I missed all of that because I was muted. Okay.
So I'm unmuted. I'll start with just kind of following up with the TECA piece.
Catherine, unmute yourself.
You have to unmute yourself, I think.
Oh. Can you hear me now? I've got a bunch of scribbly notes like usual over here. That's how I process. So I'm just going to start off, though, with follow-up to what Chris was asking about in the TECA, where we all know that at the beginning it was not what parents, weren't necessarily getting what they, thought, and good old Desi, last minute, by the seat of our pants, pulling this all together. Some trusted sources that I've kind of checked in on who probably, hopefully, have let you know how appreciative they are of all that you've done above and beyond, as Chris spoke to, that it's like night and day. And specific families that I've reached out to who are benefiting from the necessary, extra supports that you're providing through the virtual platform are working and much appreciated. And so I just want to thank you for that. As to Chris's point, it's not happening everywhere. And so I'm really proud to say that it's happening here in Dartmouth. With that said, I just want to, something that I've, in my little personal world, we've been talking about, and everyone talks about
social distancing, social distancing, social distancing. We all need to kind of adhere to what Chris's point. But I just want to differentiate between social distancing and what we really mean is physical distancing. And I just implore you to continue the good work that you're doing to make sure that we are socially engaged while physically distanced. Because there's a real big difference in that. You know, kids have the masks on, as you said, they're very quiet in school. I'm sure there's some loneliness and some isolation. That we as a district do our part at the middle school and everywhere to try to enhance at every turn the ways in which we socially engage students within their own pods, amongst other students. You mentioned the lunch bunches and the mentoring and the social groups. That's wonderful, and the homework club. But at any turn, if anyone has an idea, I just would love to see us to continue as a district to socially engage and not focus on the social distancing, physical distance, social engagement. So I just wanted to make that point. Let me see. I had one more. No, I think Chris really kind of spoke to some of the other stuff that I had. Great work, great job. Welcome, Mr. Hayes. You're doing a great job, Ms. Dekas. It's nice to see all your efforts kind of come to fruition, and just keep going. That's all I really have.
Okay.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes. Okay. See if I can get my, all right, am I good to go? Okay. Just, again, my colleagues covered so much. I think I'm the only one here who currently I do have a middle schooler. So I have to say, one of the things that hasn't come up is that, I drop him off every morning and you all are out there. Like every morning when I'm dropping him off, I'm picking him up. In some cases, I'm getting there 15 minutes before school ends, and you're all there as well, like aiding the, the parents and, making sure the students are coming out of the room, out of the school, you're happy and smiling and, engaging behind the masks. And so, I think, from the second those kids get out of the cars, or out of the buses, I think they really feel, that they are being brought in and it's orderly, that, it's a safe and welcoming environment. And I think that speaks volumes. I happened to be in the school a week or two ago. Everything was amazing. Kids were lined up, at the bathrooms. Everything just felt like it was seamless. But I agree, it was quiet. I was thinking as Kathleen was speaking about really we want to be socially engaged. I think we've done so much for that, and that's always, to me, I go back to the first time I sat in a sixth grade class or sixth grade orientation session with Mr. Doan, and he said if you're our goal is to really make kids feel good about themselves when they leave here, when they graduate from DMS, and with two other kids who have graduated, that's really spoken to me. And I know you're really working hard during this weird time to kind of again connect with those kids. But again, to echo what Kathleen has said, I would love to see again more of that. The pink days were those things. I know it's a little different now, of course, but if any of those things can be brought back, and I know the Thanksgiving, I don't know how that drive will happen, but those little pieces, I think, of getting kids feeling part of a community, really feeling that they have something beyond themselves that they can be a part of and making a difference, and all those little pieces of forming a school community, if we can continue to kind of get those out in some way, I think that I'd really like to see that, so as a parent. But otherwise, again, my son's coming home, he's thrilled, and I appreciate everything you guys are doing. And Mr. Hayes, I can speak to, my son had you last year for 8th grade, lost to the math department over there, but it's great to see you in this role, and Ms. Dekas, so thank you very much. Thank you.
Kind of turning the corner a little bit where they're.
One second.
Did they hear us?
Go ahead, you can go.
No, I'm good.
Can I go? All right.
Yeah.
No, I'll just wrap it up just to say, because unless anyone else has anything.
Everybody else, no.
I'm sorry, we skipped over Mr. Nunes.
That's fine. I let her go before me, but
I'm sorry,
again, my colleagues have talked about everything, and I'm thrilled with the job, with what's going on there, so thank you very much. It is much appreciated, believe me. And I appreciate the answer to the question I asked earlier.
Anything else?
I'll just chime
Sure.
in.
Yeah,
Can
Dr.
I-
Gifford.
Can I say something, Jonathan? Am I on?
Are you on the
I
Zoom?
can't speak.
You can speak radio, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, gosh.
Mr. Nunes.
No, I just want to say, across the district, we have so many wonderful educators and admin, but this team, they're very reflective and collaborative. Whenever we've needed something, especially, we'll go right back to the techer again, but just so reflective on what can we do better and what changes can we make, and not just say, we've done our best, et cetera. So I really enjoy working with them, and you won't find a better team throughout the district. So just say thank you, that's all.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. Have a, Mr. Nunes has got
Do we-
something.
Do we need to approve this, Dr. Gifford?
Oh, yes. School improvement plan, yes.
Perfect. So if you're still with us there, we're going to take a motion to approve your school improvement plan. I'll entertain a motion at this time to approve the Dartmouth Middle School Improvement Plan.
Yeah, I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the Dartmouth Middle School School Improvement Plan for 2021 as presented.
I'll second. No, go ahead.
So I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Nunes, a second by Mrs. Amaral. On the motion, any further discussion? Chair hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Thank you for your
you.
time. Have a good night.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You did a good job.
You're still there.
That was amazing. That was pretty good, I gotta say, for our first time.
Yeah.
That was-
Worked out quite well.
Yeah.
I just didn't know who was talking.
That was a little odd, too. I was like, are they responding?
You going first?
Next up, under new business, superintendent's update, Dr. Gifford.
All right, I have quite a bit to talk about, so I'll try to go quickly, but probably one of the first things, just a quick couple of highlights from the schools. I just asked them if they wanted me to mention anything that was going on. And you may have noticed over at Cushman, we have the new sign out front that was donated by the PTO. Finally, that was up. And they also wanted me to know that they've kicked off their bucket filling theme with Pbis, et cetera. So we've done that many years before, but it's all about taking care of yourself, taking care of others, et cetera, along with the Cushman expectations, such as wearing your mask, care for your things, keep your space, etc. So they also have had some fire safety virtual presentations ongoing with the firefighters for classroom work, with students receiving firefighter hats. That's what it is. So that's some of the little things going on at Cushman. Quinn had what I think was the best election ever, because they got to choose between chocolate or chewy candy, their mock election, and they all chose chocolate. So I think that was a good choice. Potter, they've had a lot of fun going on there as well. Some Halloween celebrations, some parties in a bag, and socially distanced Halloween dance party. I think Mr. Porter and Mrs. McHenry did the dancing for them, as far as I know.
Oh, I did see something on
Something,
Facebook.
yeah, I bet. They've had some outdoor grade level assemblies. Luckily, we've had some nice weather. And to go over, once again, the Potter's positive plan and how to be positively Potter School. So they've been working on that and how to be a learner. In DeMello, same thing. One of the DeMello initiatives is, in Katie's words, is trying to keep as normal as possible in the COVID world. So the Pbis Initiatives, I guess Mr. Rob Parati has been helping do a video version of the Student of the Month. assemblies, so he's been working with them, I guess with some students, former DeMello students as well, working with him. And they're still working on their leader of the pack choices. They visit the classrooms, Liz and Katie visit classrooms on Fridays to choose kids. And the literacy committee has launched a bookmark contest. So that's some of the things at the elementary level that I wanted to mention, instead of just COVID. Back to real school.
Perfect.
Yes, exactly. You talk about keeping kids socially engaged, and I just want to applaud our athletic and our music programs for, I am just, once again, as we're wrapping up our season, really saying I'm very, very thankful that we were able to have our kids participate in those various activities. As you know, we did a great job with both programs, and we had the one student that was positive, as we all know, but it didn't transmit to anyone else throughout the program. So to get kids out in the field and kids out on the music field, if you will, was outstanding. I've actually reached out to Dartmouth Week to do a story on that, and they thought it was a nice idea, seeing so many districts didn't participate, and to just say how successful it was. So we had over 400 participants in the athletic program, and we're entering playoffs next week. As you might know, volleyball came in undefeated again, and field hockey and soccer will be later on with that. We should be finishing up that soon. Mr. Nunes, are you speaking about the marching band?
I've got a little bit to say, but I don't have the scores or anything.
I don't have scores. I just know that 3 ensembles placed first in their division, so I'll leave the marching, all the bands to you. Ian gave me a nice update, but I'll leave that part to you. As you know, the high school did shift to start kids that were home on their at-home day, able to Google Meet into their classrooms. I checked with Mr. Tebow halfway through the day, and he said he had not heard any terrible things. He had walked through, it looked great. So hopefully, I wanted to kind of give them the day to get going and be able to get over here tomorrow and check in with some folks and see how that went. As we all know also, we heard Pizer and the governor and Commissioner Riley speak last week. Once again, speak of things that, are more theory, if you will, in reality. So I just want folks to know, because people did email me about when we were going back to school, and
full 100% return, right?
So you just
saw that.
It's just crazy. They say everyone should be in school, but yet, as people must know, we still have to follow the guidance, which is exactly what we're doing. So unless they found a way for us to have a ton more buildings to house kids in and transport kids in, it's staying the way it is right now. We also have the staffing has been pretty good. It's not abnormal with absences right now, but I just want to say I'm very pleased with the principals. We look at the absentee list every day, and the folks that are out, whether it's on an FFCRA leave or not, just regular sick because they're sent home to wait for a test, etc. The principals have done an outstanding job on patching people in and using our TAs, etc. Everyone else that's in the school. So we really haven't had a big problem up to this point. Another thing, just as a reminder, and I did put it in the update this weekend that went out, we will plan on using, if we do have snow days, we will plan on resorting to a remote day. So folks should be ready for that. Obviously, if there's a big power outage in town, it would be like a regular snow day, things like that. But along that lines, just to have folks always be prepared for the, as we said, it's flexible and fluid. We never know what might happen at any time. Let's see. Edgenuity. I do want to go over some things with Edgenuity because I know Mr. Oliver asked about it. So I just want to let folks know, in addition to what the middle school is doing with the TECA to support kids, Edgenuity, as you might know, that program does not even supply any teachers at all. So kids are completely self-directed. But I want you to know what the high school is doing to support those kids. So we have again, this is a little lengthy, but I think it's important to speak about. School counselors and social workers, they reach out every week to check in with those students. They've instituted an advisory program specific for those students on the remote setting, similar to just what we do with the in-person kids. Assistant Principal Mr. Gill, he signed up, I think, for about 50 kids, and we're up to about 115. Some of those are one classrooms where we didn't have enough room in the school. They're in school, but they took an elective on Edgenuity so they can be separate, and that's working out very well. Obviously, they had informational meetings at the beginning of the year for the parents to talk about Edgenuity. And they do get reports. They're automatically shared on a weekly basis with the parents that they can observe their students' progress. And I like this one, making sure it's speaking once again about social engagement. They have planned a picture day for all those students as well. They'll be coming in on Saturday, November 14th. And a virtual learning, well, he called it academy, like the elementary testing center, has been expanded. That's to allow tests to be taken 3 days per week. I guess they initially set up 2 days, and I'm not quite sure exactly how they do it, but it's just giving the kids extra chance to participate. And he also includes that academy or the virtual students, what's happening in their weekly community update, so that students and parents can have get information. So, and as you know, the lead teachers are involved as well, supporting kids through the curriculum. So I just think it's just worthwhile to state that as we talked about with TECA, the extra work that the staff is doing to support the kids that are choosing to stay remote. We've also put up on our website, Ms. Roy put it up today, a new dashboard, which is underneath the superintendent's updates, and it will just put in if we have new cases, et cetera, and just show the percentage with the students, positive cases within the district. Right now, once again, we still have no staff. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. And
not to interrupt you,
yeah.
but how often will that be updated, Dr.?
Every
Gifford?
Friday. And we told her, which I might as well go into, we are also announcing that she will be retiring as of December. Wow. But I told her she still has to do the dashboard on Fridays.
Fair enough.
So I know we'll probably have another, but I guess we can stop there for a minute because Michelle will be retiring. So she'll be a great loss. We have a ton of things. We've gone over what the tasks that she does, and we'll have to be talking about that for sure. Yeah. So.
And will we have another meeting before she leaves?
We have another meeting, so we can have cake and ice cream or something.
Perfect.
Let me just look over my list, because sometimes I write things everywhere and then I forget them. The governor's announcement, high school shift. Oh, and the last thing I just want to mention also is we had, as I've mentioned to you, every Monday morning, we meet with the Board of Health, Chris Michaud, and the town nurses. Our nurses, one or two are involved, as well as we usually a principal or two, depending on what's happening in the district. Mr. Kiley, Ms. Jodwin, who supervises the nurses. And we're working together with Mr. Galashaw's help on I guess it's a, what would you call it, like a shared drive, just specific to us, the people that are talking about COVID and maintaining an updated list. The collaboration between the district and the town, as well as our nurses, the work that they're doing has been fabulous. Since we've put our flow charts out and really emphasized our process for reporting cases, it's gone very well. The principals are either notified, it's usually by a nurse or the Board of Health, but usually the parents are calling the nurses and letting them know what's going on if there's a positive case. The principals immediately call our office, we report it to DESE, and then the nurses and the Board of Health are in contact about contact tracing. A couple of weeks we've had buses that we've had to look at and see what was that. So it's actually, once the first week or so went by, things are working well as far as us trying to maintain some semblance of order as far as the contact tracing and that. So I think that's it. Like I said, I had quite a bit to kind of update folks on, but that's it.
That's it?
Yep.
Nope. Thank you, Dr.
You're
Gifford.
welcome.
That was that was a lot, and it was a lot of
Fast, but-
actually helpful information, I think, for the committee and for those of
Yep.
those at home watching. I also do have a number of things that I'd like to share and just kind of bring up with the committee here. First thing, when we go back to the Google Meets at the high school that started today, is that so just so we can clarify for everyone at home, parents, is it mandatory that the students they're supposed to be
Yes.
not zooming in, but meeting,
Googling it.
Google meeting into it, and that's where attendance will be taken, is
Correct.
that correct?
Absolutely
So it's
correct.
it's not optional?
No.
It is something that the high school is expecting that students will be doing on
Correct.
their remote
Their-
days or
their-
their days that they're at home, that
That's
they
right.
will be logging in?
Teachers will be moving along with the lessons, and yes, and attendance is taken.
Okay.
Can I interject just a
Yeah,
quick
go ahead.
Just a quick question, like, from a parent point of view, if your child is going to miss, for example, one of our children has a dentist appointment tomorrow. So but they're virtual, do they still go through and call the school? Is that an email? So if you're going to miss a portion of time because but your child's at home, but they're going to an appointment or something like that, should the parents still call the school to report that as like, my child is going to a dentist appointment X time, even though it's their at-home day? So
Like an excused absence
exactly,
somewhere.
like how do
Yeah,
those-
I would just absolutely have them reach out to the teacher, email the
Okay.
teacher, whatever.
So it's not
Absolutely.
necessarily calling into the absentee line when they're home.
Right, because you'll be marked present from the other classes, but then they'll let the other teacher know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
If
what I
they-
would
yeah,
do.
so-
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to, think. I'm
Yeah,
thinking
it's a
through,
little-
like,
No,
as a
that's a good
little
point for
training.
those, for those people at home that
Yeah.
the student
Yeah.
may start the day and they have to
Right.
be
Like
dismissed.
they're
at-
dismissed,
that's right.
exactly. The one thing I would mention along that lines is, it's a good setup also for if students, because we're encouraging people not to come to school if they're sick.
Exactly.
So if you're sick, you can log in, of course, and attend
Right.
school. But that's not an option. That's not a volunteer, you're still expected to come to school on your in-person days. It's not like, okay, now I never have to come.
Oh, yeah.
That's for if you're sick, et cetera. So,
Okay.
so these kids can't pull anything over us, because we'll be looking. All of a sudden, they're not there every day, so.
Exactly.
yeah.
No, that's actually a really good
Right.
point, really good question. Just my second piece I have is just to echo what I believe you said, Dr. Gifford, is that, even though we all heard earlier this week from Governor Baker and Commissioner Riley that, all of a sudden, which I love, the metrics map has now changed, and we have new metrics we're going by, and we are expected, if you're not in this zone, that some people are, and I've gotten it, and I know some of my colleagues have probably seen it, that we're expecting to go 100% back. I can assure the Dartmouth community, I can only speak for myself as the chair, and I feel free to chime in, anyone else, but I do not anticipate,
No.
at least from my perspective and from the safety, that and we're all charged. All of us sitting up here are charged with the safety and well-being of our students, faculty, and staff at the Dartmouth Public Schools.
Unless Desi has a way,
Yeah.
and the governor, of giving us school stretches and bus stretches so that we
Right.
can fit everybody in.
Exactly.
It's not happening.
There is absolutely no way that that none of us, and maybe I'm
Not
speaking
happening.
out
For
of
me.
turn here,
Yeah,
that we can safely return to 100% in-person
Not with
learning.
our numbers going up.
I
Absolutely
made
not.
the comment back in September or October, and also to Mr. Kiley, about how much time. I said, by the grace of God, in January,
Yeah.
this clears. What would we need? But I never expected the governor and the commissioner to, in the middle of this thing, as it blows up even more, to sit there and say, yeah, go ahead back to school.
Right.
No, not happening.
Well, I'll just throw this out there really quickly. Let's face it. Here's the bottom line. They had the opportunity. The state had the opportunity to make a mandate for the local school districts. They left it up to the local school districts. Some local school districts didn't like, they didn't like what they had to say, and now they're trying to change it. But they're leaving it to the local school districts. And as far as I'm concerned, we're responsible, and we're going to keep kids and students safe.
Yep.
Safe.
It's going well.
Keep everyone.
Moving forward, piggybacking off of that, I just want to let my fellow committee members know that I had the opportunity, I asked Dr. Gifford to sit in on their Monday standing meeting with Chris Mishard from the Board of Health. After receiving several concerns from, actually phone calls and emails from parents in town, that this goes back to, unfortunately, some bad decisions being made. I'll leave it at that, with, social gatherings on Halloween and over the weekend. I've heard stories of 30-plus students, Dartmouth High School students, 8th graders, and that's just unfortunate and very unacceptable. And there's a lot of time and effort that the faculty, the administration has to go into, as well as the Board of Health, for contact tracing purposes. And I am quite honestly, and sharing my concerns with Chris Misha from the Board of Health, very, very concerned with the Thanksgiving holiday and the Thanksgiving break. And while I know that from Governor Baker and Commissioner Riley's press conference that they expect schools to stay open unless there's a proof of community spread within the schools. I want to believe that won't be us here in Dartmouth, but I will say it again now, and I'll say that we have a meeting before Thanksgiving. Yes, or after. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'll say it again if we do.
We are meeting before Thanksgiving.
All right, so I'll say it now, and I'll say it again afterwards, that I would ask those members of the community in Dartmouth that, we just make smart decisions, not only for your own family and for your own kids, but for my daughter, all of our kids here, John's grandchildren, everyone. Let's just make smart decisions so we can keep our schools open. I think that's paramount. To me, that is paramount, that even though we're only 50% and we're hybrid right now, it's better than completely going remote, because these kids need the social, emotional aspect of being in school. So I would just ask people to please make smart decisions. Please be responsible. Please be respectful, and just set the tone, for your own kids. So I would just ask everyone to be cognizant of that, because Chris Misha was quite concerned moving forward through the holidays and after Thanksgiving of the potential, the potential that's out there. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, you said it well.
Anyone else?
Said it well.
Just a couple of other things. I do want to echo Dr. Gifford's comments that I am thrilled that we were able to have a sports season. Not every district was allowed to do that. I know some of us, and I actually had a nice long conversation with Mr. Christofouli, our athletic director. Some of us, we weren't able to. Dartmouth Public Schools made the decision way back, I believe, in August or the beginning of September, that we were not going to allow fans into our games. A lot of parents were disappointed, understandably. I wish I had the opportunity to see my daughter play some volleyball, but it is what it is. And just for full transparency is that, understanding it, there were some other, we were the first ones to join in on the pod, from what Andy was saying, our athletic director, and some other districts joined, and then some political forces got involved, and that opened up the door to allow fans into other districts. But I will, as much as it hurt to some extent to not allow, and I would drive by, and I'm sure we all did drive by the middle school and see all the parents at the fence. I stick by Mr. Christofouli's decision. I think it was the right decision. We'll see. At the end of the day, we had a good season, and we're moving forward. So that being said, I always love listening to. I had from my house, I can clearly hear the band. I'll turn it over to Mr. Nunes now. But I enjoy listening to the band practice, or I don't know if it was maybe a remote home show this weekend. But I did. They sounded good from a mile and a half away.
Yeah,
Mr.
they did.
Nunes.
They did. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it's just a couple of things before I get into that. Just a thank you to town meeting for passing the $75,000 for the, the UNIVACs type of deal. Much appreciated. And again, Mrs. Deacon was talking about, and Mr. Hayes and Mr. Rossi and Mr. Doan were talking about the one-to-one initiatives and the Chromebooks and everything else, but it's that funding from the town, you know, and in our budget that has allowed us to do that and has really helped out in this situation. So just a thank you for that. Yeah, but I had the privilege, and my thanks in all seriousness, you talked about the parents, you know, not being able to get in and watch them, and it also included the music parents. And my thanks to those parents for totally understanding what we were trying to do. I mean, you know, as Mr. Christopher and I, again, like you, I had numerous conversations with him, and, you know, we own them type of deal, and we could have, you know, and that way there were no issues. I mean, I had the privilege of, you know, introducing the seniors and their parents for the, you know, the boys and girls soccer and also girls field hockey. And, you know, the senior parents having a chance to sit in the stands and watch their, you know, sons and daughters, you know, for their last home game in the regular season type of deal. And I know they were very much appreciative of it. And we kind of did the same thing with the music on Saturday with those students. Thursday night with the color guard, and then Saturday afternoon with the winds and then the percussion. So it worked out quite well. But yeah, it was a little bit of a different type of season for the music department. Instead of putting 120 students plus or minus all together on a field, you know, they broke them down into 3 groups. There was winds, percussion, and color guard, and all 3 of them, you know, instead of doing one, you know, roughly 10, 11-minute performance, they were all doing, you know, 4 or 5 minutes of their own thing. And that, whether it was through U.S. bands or Bands of America, you know, that, and my thanks to DCTV, who, you know, did the taping to send the tapes to U.S. bands and, you know, Bands of America through flow marching to get the students scored and everything else. It was just really great, you know, to see the kids interacting, and like anything else, you know, the sports teams and such, see the progress that you know, they make, you know, through the course of the year. I mean, it ended Saturday, and we were all kidding and laughing because we would have been in Giant Stadium this past weekend in MetLife for U.S. Band's finals. Well, usually we're there, and it's, you know, maybe 20 degrees and wind chill about 40 below. It's just that, you know, and we have a 70 degree day on Saturday. It would, you know, I mean, we would have been in shorts and a t-shirt type of deal, but that's just the way it is. But, you know, they picked up 3 first places over the weekend, and they've had, you know, their scores have been consistent in the 90s all year. So I'm very, very proud of what they had to do. And, you know, nobody knew how this was going to work out, but, you know, my hat's off to Mr. Flint, you know, his first year in, and, you know, they started working in July to how they were going to do this, and when it finally came to fruition, you know, put it out there, and it's, you know, they had a fantastic season, and the students worked real hard, and it was good to see them. I mean, I was up here the other night and just enjoyed turning around and watching the football team practice. You know, even though they're not playing till February and March, it was great to see them out there working. So, you know, the old adage, the students are engaged, they're busy, and they're doing, you know, what is good for them and that. So I'm just thrilled. So.
No, good stuff, really is.
Absolutely.
Mrs. Waite, Mrs. Amaral, anything?
Well, Ms. Waite, you go first.
Well, I just had, actually, I have just 1 or 2, I guess, questions. Quickly, I guess, one, as we get into the semester turn for the high school, which, does the semester ends next Friday, is that right? This upcoming Friday for the high school, or the term, excuse me? When does the term end for the high school? Is that?
She's checking.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure the date.
Okay, but is that, at that point, can students jump onto the Ingenuity? That was our plan, if they want to go onto the Ingenuity platform, if they decide they want to jump on, can they I guess, I'm thinking of parents, and this gets back to like the mandate to be, you still have to go there in the opposite, you have to go into school on your school day. Are we going to allow an option for students who want to be all virtual to stay virtual, or are we just going to say like, no, you have to go into Ingenuity? I don't know if I'm like expressing this very clearly, but now that kids on their home day, if you follow me, can be on a video.
Oh, I see it.
Yes, I'm
understand.
wondering if that question's going to come up with parents to say like, I'd like them to stay with their teachers, and now they're being offered the video option,
I understand.
and we're progressing. So I just see that as like something.
We haven't talked about that, and
Okay.
I don't want to go there right now.
And I
because
think, but just as
that'd be like a fourth form of education.
Yes.
We've already got 3 models going.
But even
so.
if we say like no, just
Yeah.
to have that out there, I think is
Yeah, just to make it clear that one way or the other,
Yeah.
no, it's not an option.
because I
Right.
can see like that coming up with
Exactly.
yes.
Exactly.
So that was
Yeah.
one question, and then I guess my other question is just in talking through like such a great fall season, do we need to then open up at our next, like, do we need to discuss the winter season? Will we discuss that in our next meeting? Like anything about the winter season when it comes to, when we're looking, and even just thinking of our band and our choral concerts that are typically our holiday concerts. I'm just kind of curious, like, if that's a discussion that we have, playing into that, like, and
Yeah, no, that's
how that
that's a
looks.
good point, Mr. Nunes.
Yeah, no, I think in conversations I was having with Mr. Flint last week, I don't think you're going to see any holiday concerts at the moment right now. It appears as though just because of the distance that if you're in chorus,
Right.
the distance you have to have, and also the distance you have to have with the winds, the wind instruments and that type of deal, that kind of at the moment is not, viable. He is looking at trying to do something come later on after the first of the year, but as far as any holiday concerts and that type, I don't think you're gonna see that at this point in time.
I think he might do virtual.
Yeah,
Yes, but
Whatever,
you
yeah.
know, but.
some
you
kind
know,
of virtual something.
Yeah.
Or other. Yeah.
What about
But
sports?
I actually had a conversation with Andy today because hearing some of my same thing, the South Coast Conference talking about meeting and discussing it, but they're in process right now as far as actually I have it here. Did I put it here? The MIAA meeting, his group meeting, and then they'll put their recommendations forth as a COVID committee, just like the same as the spring.
Okay.
So there's no determination at this point. But he did, we'll be in touch with that for sure. Because I called him on the same thing today. What are we thinking for the next season? He's just happy to get this season over next week and breathe a minute. But yeah, I had it right here too of not that you really need, here it is right here. There's a timeline. The Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs publishes the baseline guidance for youth sports. That happened on November 6th. MIAA Sport Committee, as we just said, will present modifications to a Sports Medicine Committee. It's quite a process.
Yeah.
The Sports Medicine Committee then goes to the COVID Task Force, and the final recommendation will be forwarded to the MIA Board for discussion around November 20th. So we still have a ways to go on what they're going to be suggesting for sports, and it looks like basketball and hockey, but of course it'll be modified just as soccer with the different rules and whatnot. So we'll see. I'm hopeful.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, yeah, thank you.
Mrs. Emerald?
I just had this past week, I had the pleasure of speaking to one of our seniors who's working toward this Eagle project. So he had some questions that I answered for him. And it reminded me of something that we haven't done, and I'm hoping that maybe we could, not that he brought it up, but I just thought of it and speaking to him, is having a student rep here, not here maybe, but in possibly a student rep from the high school and maybe one from Edgenuity to kind of offer us sort of some feedback around how they're feeling and that student voice. So that was number one, if that's okay for me to, it just came to me this week and I would have, and also though too in our, again, we're all kind of just doing our best, but making sure that we schedule in some virtual updates with students from home about how we always usually do. Would be nice. And when you were talking about the high school, I thought that was wonderful, that Ross, I think I sort of had some assumptions, so it's wonderful to hear that Ross is including those students in Edgenuity in his community updates, and I might be assuming that's also happening, so I just want to, if it's not happening, I'm hoping it's happening, but if it's not, it's okay. We do better tomorrow than we did today, right? This is how we're working together. It's not about gotcha. I hate that.
Right.
I see that a lot online. It's like,
Right,
gotcha,
right.
you made a mistake, and no, we're just trying to do our best. But if the elementary, we have our own, virtual academy, but if the elementary and if the middle school is not including in, maybe Darren's
Right.
monthly or biweekly updates that he mentioned, might we
Right, and
sort
then
of
a
send a little idea, suggestion that they also include those updates to the virtual learners? That just came to me.
Yeah, no.
That's a good idea.
I mean, it didn't just come to me,
Keeps
but
them included.
No, I
that's
think
all.
I think that's great.
Yep.
Kathleen, thank you. And as the three of you were talking, I actually had a couple more things. There's just so
That's
much
it.
to talk about.
I know.
Just really quickly, I'd just like to turn over to Mr. Kiley for a minute. How we, knock on wood, I guess I'll use my gavel.
Right.
Transportation, I haven't heard a lot. I really haven't heard much. How are we doing with transportation?
Doing pretty well. It really is. For the most part, we've students are behaving on the bus in the way that we're asking them to. So for the most part, students have had good mask compliance. We've had a few issues that we've had to address along the way, and but so far so good. We don't have a capacity issue right now. We still have a lot of folks transporting their kids to school, definitely more than we've ever had. So there's some traffic issues that are happening at the schools, but from a transportation perspective, we're doing pretty well. They're doing a good job cleaning the buses in between kids, and
So they are being cleaned in between kids?
yeah, in between runs, yeah. So they're cleaned in between runs, they're sprayed twice a day, so, I mean, they're a good environment. Fortunately, the weather's not been horrible, so windows open on the bus are a good thing. The longer that we can keep them wide open, the better.
Sure.
And I guess I just encourage families to make sure that their students have layers with them so that they can remain comfortable, because we are going to try and keep as much fresh air as possible. It's an important part of the process, so to keep everyone safe. So.
Now that actually leads me into my next question as far as temperatures in classrooms. I know that some of us probably have gotten some emails or seen on social media about complaints about temperatures in classrooms.
Yeah.
And I know obviously to some extent, at some point, it's going to be cold. It's going to get cold out.
Right.
And we're going to have to start closing our windows. Like you said, we're doing the best we can, trying to keep windows open as long as possible. But in full transparency, those rooms, some of our older buildings that have the univents, they're blowing in fresh air, they're bringing in fresh air. For buildings like the high school, we have air handler systems on the roof that are exhausting the air as well. So I'm sure we hear it from parents, we hear it on social media, we hear it from teachers about what's the right way. Well, some people are looking for, this is the protocol when it hits a certain temperature, we're shutting windows. But that's really, correct me if I'm wrong, that's really not the case, and it's more of a comfort level, and it's more along the lines of what is, you can't have your students freezing in the classroom, But the same respect, and just so we can all be clear, is that we have done our due diligence in the Dartmouth Public Schools to bring in HEPA filtration filters to the high school, to the middle school, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we are working on ordering them. Of course, it's a national shortage, just like there are Chromebooks and technology devices, to the other buildings. Is that correct, Mr. Kiley?
That's right. We've distributed 202 so far to classrooms. So that's not enough, and we know that, and we're doing our best to try and outfit every classroom. But at this point, we've completed most classroom spaces in the high school, middle school, and Cushman schools, and Potter, DeMello, and Quinn are still next on our list. As soon as we can get them, we'll get them to them, and that does provide clean air to a classroom. Does it provide the optimal classroom environment? No, and fresh air is important in that mix, so as long as we can continue to do that, we should.
Sure.
And yeah, we understand. I mean, it's New England, it's going to be cold.
That's right.
And, but I think it's important, and as I've listened to a lot of scientists talk about this process, this is not business as usual, you know. I mean, we have to recognize that we may have to be a little less comfortable than we normally would be. And I think we have to accept that. I mean, first of all, we're wearing this thing. We're already, you know, not as comfortable as we normally are.
Right.
But temperature-wise, we're going to have to accept that as well, that it's not going to be the perfect temperature in classrooms if we're trying to optimize the health environment.
Or 72 degrees.
Right. So, you know, it's something that we're working on. Our maintenance guys are working as hard as they possibly can to maintain our equipment, which we have noticed already that we're having more problems than we normally would with our equipment. Mr. Nunes mentioned that the town was generous in their funding of our capital improvement plan, which we had an HVAC capital improvement request for next year, not even something that we had previously asked, and the town stepped up and gave us a portion of that to help us with that process. And the town's coronavirus relief fund is also available to us to help with costs relating to maintaining our systems.
Sure.
We are taking advantage of that already. And we've also brought in a vendor to assist, an HVAC vendor, to assist our maintenance team with certain areas of the district to help us get things resolved as quickly as possible. So.
No, I think that's great, and personally, I think, and my colleagues can surely comment, I think that obviously that's paramount. We talk about, I know Dr. Bromage, I believe it was with Dr. Bromage that came in with his recommendations on airflow, and I personally think from a school committee standpoint as well as a parent standpoint that whatever we can do to continue to provide fresh air circulation or filtered air through HEPA filters, that I think it would just it'll reassure not only our students and families, but as well as our faculty and staff, because let's face it, we have a variety of levels of anxiety. I see it in my own job. I see it out there, and I know we've all every single one of us has experienced ourselves. Everyone's comfort level is different, and if what we can do as a school committee in a school department to try to do our best, we're not going to please everyone. But we can at least say that we're doing our best to provide a safe learning environment and where that we're either circulating the airflow or filtering that airflow to the best of our abilities. I can at least say that I would feel comfortable with that, and just knowing that, and I have no doubt that you and your team, Mr. Kiley, are doing the best you can to to keep up with. This is our newest building, but I know, as we know, and as we went for tours back in, I don't know, it felt like last year, some of those buildings, that they're hurting. And this goes back to, I'll bring up my colleague, Dr. Jenkins, who's not here, that this really, really puts a spotlight on how this town needs to start coming up with, and we started this conversation a few years ago, a long-range facilities master plan to get some of these buildings renovated. Whether it's renovated, whether it's rebuilt, we have to have this conversation. This spotlights what is going on in this pandemic right now, is spotlighting the inadequacies of some of our older buildings. Mrs. Waite?
Well said, Mr. Oliver. So I just had a parent who had asked me, and I thought it was an interesting suggestion, but I don't know how feasible it is. She was wondering if teachers are allowed to bring in, individual space heaters, in for their rooms, and she pointed out that I guess her son is right by the window in the middle school, and so will be, is there all day, so was kind of curious, like if that's something that you're allowing. I mean, I know some of those personal things are not, typical, but this is an atypical year, so I didn't know if that was something to raise the ambient temperature a little.
Yeah, we've not allowed those because of electrical issues that we have in the facilities. So, and we're plugging in more than ever. I mean, we now have the air purifiers and, more, and our HVAC systems themselves are running, longer and more extensively than they ever have. So we've not gone down that road, not to say that we couldn't consider it if we thought that was necessary, but at this point, we're not going that route.
Good point. That's all I got.
Anyone else?
Thank
No,
you.
I'll just end with thank you to the three of you. Thank you, Mr. Galashaw, Kate.
Worked out well.
I honestly, this is just my perspective. I honestly can't say enough about what your team is going through. The stresses, the constant changing environments and changing rules and policies that the state is putting on us. I know we're no different than any other district. However, I think that that we do a tremendous job here in Dartmouth with the team, with the faculty, with the teachers, with our teaching staff. They have been extremely flexible, willing to work with us and get things off the ground. So kudos to not just everyone in the room, but all of our 400 or 500 plus staff members that we have in this district. I personally can't thank everyone enough for everything that they've done. So that being said, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session for the purposes to update the committee with respect to collective bargaining with union personnel, not to reconvene into open session.
Mr. Chairman, two quick questions. Number one, are we still meeting next Monday for our training session?
Yes.
Okay, that's here?
Yes.
In person.
Okay. In person, okay, thank you. And does she have any question,
Oh, thank you. Once again, always looking at Mr. Nunes. Ms. Genther, do you have anything relating to public comment?
I have not received anything.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Nunes, for keeping me on track.
No problem.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, with regard to your motion, so moved?
Second.
I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Nunes, a second by Mrs. Zamaral to adjourn into executive session on the motion. Any further discussion? Can we have a roll call, please, Ms. Genther?
Chris Oliver?
Yes.
Kathleen Amaral?
Yes.
John Nunes?
Yes.
Mary Waite?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned. Have a wonderful night.